first things first, we're going to be using my absolute favourite. You know, many of us have got a number of these pads, being the pastel pads. So this is what we're going to be using for, you know, a few of the projects anyway. Not only this, many of you have also got our 12 by 12 Easter paper pad, so we're going to be using that as well. And then if that wasn't enough, we've brought in another two of my favourites, the left fold alphabets and also our big happy dies. Now, if you don't have any of these, you can always, of course, just use what you've got at home, and you can follow the flow as to what I'm creating. So let's go in and let's start with our 12 by 12. So it's from the pastel pad that I just showed you a moment ago. And then what I've gone in to my 12 by 12 Easter pad, I think it was called the Hoppy Easter 12 by 12. I've come along and I've just chopped it to 6 inches, and then I've come along to 11.5 inches. And then what I've done is I've taken a little bit of grey cardstock, and this one here, you will see, is going to be 6 1/4 by 11 3/4. This is then going to break up the pad, because I love that beautiful spring tone colour that you've got within the actual pastel tone. So I want to see some of that. But on the other hand, what I also want to do is I want to then, of course, make it Easter themed with the actual pattern paper. So if we add that one in, just lining that up. So we're just going to do simple mats and layers. The thing with it being a scrapbook page as well, you don't necessarily want a lot of weight to it. You want a lot of dimension, but you want to try and do that in clever little ways. So these are a few little ways in which you can do that, just by encapsulating kind of part of the pad, but as well as that background all in one. So that is the basis of our scrapbook page done. So if I just set that to the side for now, and then we're going to go in with that big happy die. So we've gone in with another piece of the yellow, and then I've got an additional piece of grey card, all linen of course, which you guys will know, being my favourite. So I'm going to go into my large plate, because if I go in with the word Easter, now I'm not going to take each word to spell Easter, I'm just going to do one just to show you how I do my drop shadow for those that have never seen it before. We're going to go in and let's just tape that one down. Now for this one, because it's quite a simplistic shape die, I'm going to go frosted shim. I'm going to take out the magnetic, and then we're going to go in with our top plate. Now, if you do happen to have these dies and you've got things such as your junior or your midi or anything like that, that will absolutely work size-wise. If you are new, do not worry. Do not worry about that sound, because what that is this is still kind of a relatively new plate. It's a completely flat, relatively new plate. It's only been used a couple of times. So that cracking sound is actually all of these straight lines within the die cutting into the plastic.
Yeah.
So it's normal, don't worry, don't fear. And as you can see, it's still die cut absolutely perfectly. Now, because I'm using our older left fold alphabets, this is where, hence the name, the fold on the side. So if I take my scissors, you're left with a little kind of embossed line.
This is the first time I've ever seen you demonstrate this, even though I know that you do it all the time.
Do it all the time?
Yeah.
I do it all the time, yeah. I think I could probably count on one hand how many times I've used those left fold alphabets in the way that they were actually designed to be used.
Yeah.
I always use them as single individual alphabets. So I'm going to do the same again. Same die with the word happy, and then we're going to go in with the letter E, and we're just going to repeat that step again. We're going to go frosted, and then we're going to go in with our top plate here. And it's a really simple layout. However, it is doing something that you might not necessarily notice at first glance, and it's actually pulling your eye in to the photo that you choose to use. And it's just about that diagonal. It's about that layout, and I'll explain that in a moment once we come to lay that out. So I'm going to do what I've done there a moment ago. We're going to take that happy, and then we're also going to take that E. And if we do that drop shadow, so let's just chop that down. So I'm following that embossed line that you also get. And now I've got my individual letter.
Yep.
Take now our tacky glue. You can take your tape runner if you want to. It's entirely up to yourself, but we're going to go in with my glue on the back. And then what I'm going to do is for a drop shadow, what I always like to say, Ben, is I hover right over the top and then I pull down to the bottom right-hand corner ever so slightly. And this is giving me a really thin drop shadow. And that's all that I want, just a really, really thin drop shadow that if I bring in a little bit of the white, you can just see that grey popping out from the side. So let's do the same with the happy here. So same idea with my glue or your own chosen adhesive. Many of them will work, but what I'm also doing for every single layer, and for those that know me will be shocked, not a foam pad in sight. Not a foam pad. I am going to get a little bit of depth, and you'll see that in a moment, but because the intention would be for this to go into a scrapbook, I want to limit the amount of height that I've got within each page. You can absolutely do that, no problem at all. It just depends on how many pages you want to put in your scrapbook. But if I do my drop shadow there, if I even just bring in this little bit of the blue in the back, just lets you see that grey that little bit more. So while we're here, what we'll do is let's do a little bit of our layout to start with. I've got a piece of white card. Now I've gone 4x6. I've chosen not to put a photo as such, Ben, because I want this to be the layout that you can see, you can follow, and then you can, of course, choose your own photo.
Yes.
It is 4x6, as I said, so it's a good standard photo size. And all that I'm doing is I'm matte and layering that onto another bit of the yellow and the grey. Notice I'm not using a big abundance of different colours, different papers, different dyes. I'm keeping it quite simple. I've got kind of a small selection of tools and implements that I'm using to then create the scrapbook. So before we start to assemble it all together, let's visually get this into place. I've also got my letter E. I've also done all the rest of the letters beforehand to give us Easter.
It's such a handy size, the left fold, aren't they? That's why you love them,
really
isn't
are.
it?
That's why I use them all the time, Ben. So handy. And we've got Happy Easter. Our photo's going to go into there. We'll finish off with a couple of the daisies. But this is really easy, Ben, to replicate for any occasion.
Yeah.
So that could be Happy Birthday with the birthday paper in there. It could be, you know, Happy Christmas or Merry Christmas, depending on the sentiments that you've got. So it's a really easy scrapbook page to use and follow and create all throughout the year. So let's go in now and then let's go and commit to the stick. Now before I go in with the happy, let's do all of these letters to start with. And we're going around back with my glue and I'm going to go along the bottom and I'm keeping it quite easy for myself. And what I mean by that is I'm just going a couple of millimetres above the base.
Yep.
And then that means it's really easy to create that nice even flow of each of the letters. Although you can go at jaunty angles if you want to and have a little bit of fun. But if I then go in with each of these ones, press them in, and at this point, if you really wanted to add a little bit of height, you could pop the word Easter on maybe like a low foam pad, maybe about a 1mm foam pad, or if you are using glue gel, a shallow layer of glue gel. But if we come into there, like so, press that last one in, or second last one, into this one. So we've now got our Easter. And then once I'm happy with that one, what I can then do is then work backwards. So, I mean, I'm going from the bottom corner and working backwards and upwards. So keeping this shallow, keeping this flat too, just in with my glue. But what I'm also doing is I'm just going over the edge. This is what I mean by visually, Ben, what you're wanting to do is this is actually drawing your eye into the photo.
Yes.
Because the sentiment here is pulling your eye in, the sentiment here is pulling your eye up. So visually, your eye is going to go into that centre platform. We'll want to then create that little bit of decoration at the top as well. So let's go in with my glue. So I'm going to add my glue all the way over the back of the happy. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of fun. And if you got our Easter treat bags,
Oh, yeah.
what I'm going to do is I've taken the little bunny rabbit ears. So I've die cut the little bunny
cute.
rabbit ears. That's going to go just underneath the letter P.
So these are from the treat box collection, aren't
are.
they? And they're in the shop to show if you want these.
They are indeed, and this is exactly where they're from. So I thought, let's have a little bit of fun and have that just popping out. So I can press that down into place. And then I've also gone from an old favourite all the way back to Sarah's signature collection, and this one being where we've got the daisies. But if you have got past collections like the daisy collection or a relatively new layering flowers, which has the daisies, you can use those ones. But I'm just going to finish off. Now, of course, at this point, you'd probably want to then pop your photo in first, then add the daisies. That's entirely up to yourself. You've got options. You can add gems, you could add pearls, you could do inky edges if you want, but keeping it in a really, really nice, simplistic 12 by 12 form, visually drawing your eye in either from the top or either from the bottom. And then there you go. You've got your really, really cute 12 by 12 Easter scrapbook page for you to pop whatever photo or whatever written wording you want to pop in there.